All right, we are live here. This is FPL Under the Radar, our first preseason video for the 2022-23 FPL season. This is a very special video for us. We are, of course, doing a video almost after 2.5 months. We have quite a few very special guests here with us today. Of course, good evening, good morning, and good afternoon to everyone who is here with us on the chat, who are seeing us live, or whoever will catch us later on. Let me just first address my two co-hosts, Wrangler and ZD. How are you guys doing? How are you doing, Wrangler?
I'm doing good, buddy. How are you? It's been a
Doing
while.
good, doing good. Yeah, nice to
How's your break?
see both of you. It was good. I mean, I wanted to take a break from Twitter, but I ended up being on Twitter pretty much the whole time anyways. But it was fun. It was not boring. I kind of enjoyed the preseason. This was my first preseason on FPL Twitter. So yeah, it was good. It was fun. How are you doing, ZD?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Yeah, thanks. I am actually kind of still enjoying my break. Not,
Still
not.
vacation mode.
Yeah, going a little bit in the Twitter, but not active actually. So hopefully, I'll be active very soon.
Yeah, yeah. All righty. All right, so let me introduce our guests today. So first of all, we have last season's champion, Jamie, aka Football is Life FPL, with us. How are you doing, Jamie?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. The baby is down to sleep. I got a night in my own time zone that I can enjoy a beer and chat FPLs. So it's good.
Nice, nice. Thank you for accepting our invitation. You are a very busy man these days. How is it sinking in? It has been almost 2.5 months. How is it sinking in now?
Yeah, I told James that like there's still moments where it kind of hits me, and I'm like, did I do it? I did. I think I did it. But it's it's sinking in. The more I getting out and being more engaged with the community, I think it feels more real.
Nice.
But it's still like trying to soak it up until game week 1 when I'm no longer officially first overall. Now everybody is.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and today we are not going to talk too much about the season bygone. We are mostly going to talk about the upcoming season. But yeah, again, very good to have you here.
Absolutely happy to be on.
Next, we have a new face on our channel, Yogesh. He's our resident Arsenal expert. He's always very active on whenever we are talking about Arsenal on the space, not just on Arsenal, pretty much everything at FPL. Welcome, Yogesh, to our channel. How are you feeling?
Doing great. Thanks, Kante, Wrangler, and ZD for having me on the show. Huge privilege. Thanks.
Nice. This is your first live video ever, like YouTube?
Yeah, first ever YouTube video. And I have some elite guests with me sharing the video, so I'm really thankful for that. No introduction needed for Jamie, of course, reigning world champion FPL. It's inspirational for all of us. Hopefully, we can follow his footsteps.
Absolutely.
And yeah, Dan, of course, the founder of FPL USA and so many great things. He has really brought the community together in USA. So huge kudos to Dan too. Yeah, fantastic to be here and looking forward to hear everyone's thoughts.
Nice. Welcome again. And last but not the least, we have our dear friend Black Wolf, aka Dan, with us. It feels like that I've been like talking to Dan every day because we have been so much connected on FPL Twitter. We've been chatting pretty much all the time about all the different things. How are you feeling, Dan? How are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you. I'm very happy after the result today.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to be on,
Nice.
especially with Jamie and Yogesh. So I'm excited.
Nice.
So
So
it's a good job you put me in between the Arsenal fan and the Tottenham fan.
keep them separate, right? Yeah.
That was on
Absolutely.
purpose to take you,
Yeah.
Yeah.
in the middle.
And he's the wolf also, right? No one is going to
That's right.
cross that. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing with FPL USA. What have you been working on over the last couple of months, and what are your upcoming plans with FPL USA?
Yeah, it's been quite a crazy off season. We have a FPL USA leagues coming up. So we've created a tiered league system with FPL USA Elite, an elite qualifier, and also a global community league, just to create a little bit of extra competition within the group. I think everybody wants to try and beat Jamie. So if he goes ahead and wins Elite this season, it will show that he's really knows what he's talking about, and it wasn't just luck.
Bring it on.
Yeah, that's right.
I'll prove myself all over again this year.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And the league is sponsored by surprise shirts. So the winner of each league will get a surprise shirt box, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I was really surprised when they contacted me. It shows that the FPL USA name has really gotten out there now. And on top of that, our community is constantly growing. We have the FPL Meets group now, which became official today, if you saw the announcement on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
So we have leads across the country creating meetups for FPL USA. So the community is growing every day. It's really exciting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Nice to have you again, Dan here. Of course, this is your third time here, so you know the deal, how we do it. So, of course, again, welcome to all of our three guests. So today we are mostly going to focus on the three teams for the upcoming season: Tottenham, Arsenal, and Wolves. How their fixtures are looking like, what assets we want to look at, and we'll have some macro discussion as well. Overall, what our plans are for FPL this year, some drafts, initial drafts that we want to look at, and just kind of talk through it. So if anyone has any question, please feel free to write it on the chat. I will try to address that. We have already collected some questions from Twitter, so we'll address those first, and then if any other questions are here, we'll try to address those as well. So with that, let's go into our main discussion today. Basically, the reason that we're talking about these three teams, Tottenham, Arsenal, and Wolves, not completely arbitrarily. All these three teams have pretty good fixtures to start with from an attacking perspective, mostly, and somewhat from the defensive perspective as well. So one thing, of course, kind of interesting about this season is that all the good teams have kind of good fixtures to start with. That doesn't always happen. Even last season, I remember initially a lot of us didn't even start with like Man City defenders, right? I think they had a week off also on game week 2 or something like that. But this year is kind of different. Man City, Liverpool, Tottenham, Arsenal, Chelsea, and all the big teams have the kind of the best of the fixtures, right? And of course, Wolves' fixture also looks kind of good. I think the reason that it doesn't look as good is because we are showing the first 8 game weeks. I think game week 7 and 8 are Man City and Liverpool, right? So that kind of skews it a little bit, but Wolves' first 6 fixtures are actually pretty good from both attacking and defensive perspective. So without further ado, let's go into more start focusing on the teams themselves. So we'll start with Tottenham. And again, the idea is going to be, I'm mostly going to address my questions for Tottenham to Jamie, but anyone, please feel free to chime in. So first and foremost, of course, anytime we talk about Spurs, the two people that comes to mind are Kane and Son. And if I may ask the question like that, and then we can of course expand on that, Jamie, if you have the opportunity to start with one this season, who will it be? Will it be Kane or will it be Son?
Yeah, I've said this on Twitter, and I think Kane is probably the first person on my team. I haven't played around with too many drafts, but I just keep coming back to him. He's really the talisman of the team, and he's got so much creation. He's kind of just pivoted into a role where he's the true playmaker of the squad, which gives him, just a more overall rounded. He's still the poacher, but he's also this creative guy who can play Son in on the break, and there's just so much to his game that I think plays well. You could argue that means he's assisting more than scoring the goals, but if you look at his numbers, his XG and XA under Conte is just elite level. Son is as well, so it's tough to decide really between the two, but I've kind of every time I run into a 50-50 between the two, even last season and the season before, I typically go with Kane. He's just the pens puts it over for me. And then with Son being a little bit more expensive, $500,000 isn't much, but it goes a long way when you factor it all down. So I'm leaning Kane. Son's not a bad pick, but there's all sorts of premiums this year that are vying for whatever premium budget we've got. So even I think a lot of people, because of the more template Salah, Holland, structure, are overlooking Spurs, both these guys, a little bit, and that makes me excited. I can put them in my team, and I can root for my own Spurs fandom with FPL as a added emphasis to make it even more exciting.
Any possibility that you go Son over Salah at all, at least in the beginning?
No, I haven't thought that way. I think the one thing with Son, and I mean, last season, time and time again, I think he proved that he didn't really have many cold spells, and he just kept getting into great positions. And within Conte's style, he's getting a lot of just one-on-ones with the goalie, and he's arguably one of the best in the world in that situation. So I haven't found myself looking at Son as much because from the Chelsea fixture in game week 2 isn't great. It's arguably not good at all. And so, having both is probably unlikely. And since I'm leaning Kane, I wouldn't want to go too full Spurs. But I haven't thought about it much. But it's unlikely, I'd say, that I'd go with both.
Do you think either of their minutes gets hurt with all the new signings and everything, especially Richarlison coming in, or it doesn't affect at all?
I think in the first 4 or 5 games, there'll be nothing really. I mean, you'd see last season Son would get pulled off at 70 or 75 periodically, and that may still be the case. Conte is just trying to get people up to fitness and get people going as the season starts. But Kane always plays 90 minutes. I'd be shocked if he starts doing that, especially early on in the season when they're playing a game a week. When you get to Champions League coming up and navigating multiple competitions in the lead up to the World Cup, you might see a little bit more where maybe Son, Richarlison, and Kulu start as a front 3, or Kane gets pulled at 60 or 70 to keep his legs fresh. Conte is going to use Richarlison. He's not going to get no minutes across the season. So I'm intrigued to see what Conte does, but I wouldn't expect it right off the bat. And I think we have a little bit of time to figure that out. If anybody, I'd expect Kulu might get a little bit fewer minutes to start. And you could see something where, Richarlison and Son play more up top, with Kane dropping as kind of a 10, because both Son and Richarlison both can play more of that striker forward role. But I wouldn't put too much, especially on Son and Kane, from a minutes risk at the start.
Nice. Any thoughts on these guys, Yogesh or Dan? Are you either of you considering to start with any of them?
Yeah, I personally, sorry, Dan. So I personally prefer Son over Kane, mainly because he's a midfielder and you get those additional points for the goals. And seeing the way Tottenham play, especially under Conte, I agree with whatever Jamie said, right? I mean, he's of course the expert there, but I see a lot of times when Son makes that late move into the box, and he's such a clinical finisher. He hardly misses in front of the goal. I mean, he's probably the best finisher in the league. And he has been, not only looking at the last season, if you look at the seasons beyond that, Son has always been a consistent FPL performer. Like, you will never get spells where he's like completely off the game. There could be a couple of games where he's off, but then he usually comes back with a goal pretty soon. So considering the price point, like I am spending £12 million on one of these premiums, I feel very assured with that pick. And therefore my preference would be Son over Kane.
Good. Yeah. Dan, your thoughts?
If ever I make a draft with neither of these players in, I get a little nervous. I really want a Spurs player in my team.
Yeah.
But it's the sacrifices you have to make to get one of them in. I think I personally prefer Kane because of the penalty aspect and also because of team structure.
Mhm.
I cannot go without Salah for sure. And if you
Yeah.
have Salah and Son, I just can't be happy with the forwards I have to pick to
Yeah.
make up for that. So for me, it's Kane.
More for the structure then, right? Kind of.
I think so. But I do have the draft you'll see later. I don't have either of them in, and it makes me very nervous.
Yeah.
I think that will change.
Yeah. All right. Anything else that you guys want to add, Wrangler or ZD? Kane, Son.
No, I think it was covered pretty well. It's just like it will be again those type of situation maybe like last season that
Variance, right? Yeah.
we all had Kane and then Son and KDB actually let Jamie win in the FPL, right? So, but yeah, Son is an elite finisher. That's the thing. He always overperforms his XG, right? While Kane is a talisman and he's 90 minutes kind of will be probably assured, and he's on penalty too, and he's 0.5 million cheaper. So very intriguing. So it's hard. I'll probably go with Kane.
Yeah.
I always had soft corner for him, so I'll probably go with Kane too.
I think it's especially going to be critical for the captaincy, right? We have seen multiple big captaincy swings last season, right? People went for Kane and then Son delivered, or the other way, or so a few other cases as well, right? So that will be the kind of the critical thing. ZD, you want to add anything?
No, I just had a question. Any of you are concerned of August cards for Kane? Like last season, I started with him. I was stuck with him. I was planning to get Ronaldo, but I was stuck with Kane against Watford, and he gave me 1 point, and Ronaldo banged in. So I always like Kane, but I don't know. For some reason, it's been going on that August cards from September.
I think last season his mind was somewhere else, right? With all the Man City transfer and everything. We wouldn't expect that from someone like Kane, but these things happen, right? They're human beings. So
I think this season Kane's got an entirely different mindset than last season, and with kind of two things coming up. One is he's got, he doesn't have really three. He doesn't have the Man City distraction that he had last year, where he didn't even really want to be at the club.
Yeah.
And all the drama around that was totally in his headspace. Two, he's got coming off the end of a successful season where the team is going in the right direction. And so there's just positive energy around Spurs right now. Him as well, and a full preseason of Conte is going to help the whole team, I think, do a lot better rather than, kind of struggling under Nuno. And then kind of the third thing that I think is a big factor. We all know how much Kane loves England. And to hit the ground running this season is going to be, I think, a big goal of his, to make sure that he's at the top of his game come the World Cup in October, November. So he's gonna the August thing, I think, is kind of a bit in the past, and it's funny that the trends that you kind of stick to, but last season was an anomaly. I think previous years he kind of broke that curse. That really goes back 5 years or so, when he was really not scoring in August. And one season, I think there weren't any games in August. So of course he didn't score in August. So I think Kane's just I'm betting on those more intangible factors going into the season to really drive him and let him, push him to improve over even the good numbers that he put up at the end of the season, where you'd see a kind of a bit of a switch where Son was going for the golden boot. So much of the team was trying to get Son goals, trying to push, and he was just in the form of his life too. So Kane was kind of happy to take a back seat at times. And I think going into the season, he's back to being the main man. I'm going to bet on him.
Yeah.
I'll just quickly throw a stat here in favor of Son. So first game, Southampton home. Last 4 games, 6 goals, Son. So He's like high on my captaincy radar too for the first game week. So
Game week 1.
That includes the 4 goals against Southampton 2 years ago. Kane had all 4 of the assists.
Yeah, last 4 he has got 6, and yeah. That's the one, right? The high scoring one against Southampton. Yeah.
That was a wild
But
game.
the last season, Spurs didn't have good record against Southampton, right? They had draw, and they lost actually in one game.
I think Son still scored in one of those 2 games.
Yeah, the second game.
It was a penalty. It was a penalty.
Yeah, the second game they played, Hasenhüttl really had that team coached well, and they came out and they pressed Spurs right off the ball at the back, and they forced them into some bad decisions, and it really disrupted the play. And there were, they took it to him, and so I guess that is a caution of Southampton. If they play their game, they could. But Conte's got so much time. He's one of those managers that if he has enough time to train a team to play that one team, he gets the tactics right most of the time.
Was that home, Jamie, or away?
The second game last season was, I don't remember. I'd answer, but I'm guessing.
I think it's home. They lost 2-3. It's at home. So Son is scored.
I mean, there are a few good.
Sorry, go ahead, Kante.
There are a few good points on the chat. So, of course, I mean, Kane being the penalty taker, that's a plus for him. Nehal made a good point. If someone is planning to go for a premium, it's probably easier to fit Kane in. Even that 0.5 matters even more for a premium structure, because you can then upgrade a 4 million defender to a 4.5, something like that. There was something else. So Patrick was also saying basically the same thing that Dan said, that easy pivot to Haaland, right? So that could be a pretty good argument. A lot of people kind of considering to make that shift right in game week 2. I wouldn't do that personally. I think that kind of booked transfer, if you know what I mean. But anything else? Wrangler, you were saying something. Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Jamie, if you go game by game, can you distinguish this is Son's game, this is Kane game? That would be probably easy, I mean, to make the decision as well, right? Say Southampton, they play Highline, so might be a Son game,
It could. I think the tricky thing playing that game at the beginning of the season is you don't know what Conte's drilling into the team and exactly how he's going to approach that game, or how Southampton is going to treat that game with new defenders and new personnel. So that's a little bit easier, I think, to do later in the season when you've got a little bit more data and a little bit more feel of how the teams are actually playing. You can certainly use last season's data. I think is just, I wouldn't try to separate it that way or make a decision based on that at this stage. But certainly a good thing. I think Baker and Adam did a great thing later in last season on Above Average FPL on their pod that talked about kind of the way that the two of them played and which games were kind of Son versus Kane games. But that was, I think, just a lot easier at that stage of the season to make that call.
Yep. All right, so let's move on. We'll come back to this if there are any other questions. This we already kind of touched, Richarlison being here. If he was not here, I think the front three would be pretty clear cut. Do you think either of these two guys are option at all, Jamie? At least in the beginning of the season, would you risk either of these guys?
Yeah, I think Kulu's in a spot where there's just a lot of competition at that price point that we're not 100% certain on his minutes, that I'm probably not going to go there. Richarlison, I think, is a wait and see how Conte uses him. And we've got time. He's suspended for the first game. So please, nobody have him in your game week 1 team. You can watch out and see what he does, but don't put him in game week 1. And so both of them are more of a wait and see. I want to see how Kulu could be fine and be great and hit the season just like he started last season when he came in January. But just given the other people at that price, I kind of want to probably stay away from him, especially if I'm going one Spur attacker. I'm probably not going to load up on a bunch, but he's certainly an option if you're, going no Kane, no Son, but you want some exposure to Spurs and you're willing to roll the dice. Certainly not a bad option in that spot.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, maybe in the beginning it's kind of wait and watch, but when you are kind of more sure about X minutes, then definitely a good option. Any thoughts on Kulu, Yogesh, or Dan?
Yeah, I mean, until we know how they're going to utilize Richarlison, it kind of puts me off.
Yeah.
Kulusevski, and as Jamie said, that 8 million price point is very competitive.
Right.
But you have Maddison, Saka, even Jesus up front. I prefer all of those assets than Kulusevski right now.
Okay.
So unless you need that Spurs coverage, I wouldn't go there.
Yep, same thoughts. I don't disagree. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So next, let's talk about the Tottenham defenders. Lot of talk about the wingbacks, right? Contest wingbacks. Very good price. Doherty at 5, Perisic at 5.5. Are there any good options, at least in the beginning of the season? What do you think, Jamie? Would you go for any of them at all?
Yeah, I'm maybe on Spurs wingbacks right now. I think it's hard. We don't know how Conte is going to use these guys and who's first choice right now. We think we know that Perisic is going to be first choice long term, and he should be hands down. But does Conte throw him in right from the start at getting more than 60 minutes, 5 subs? He's going to rotate these players a lot. There's like 12 wingbacks on Spurs roster. Once you start factoring in that Conte says he can use Lucas Moura there, he can use Decky there, he can. He's got Sessegnon, we got Reguilon, we got Emerson Royal, we got way too many people in those positions.
Yeah.
Obviously, Doc and Jed Spence, the Jedi, are probably the first two on the right, and Perisic and Sessegnon on the left. But we just don't know exactly how they're going to be used. With that said, I still find it's probably hard for me not to go into game week 1 without Perisic. His attacking output is just from that left wing back spot is just unrivaled based on what he did in Serie A and based on what he's done under Conte in this system. So he's a good, and he's just a little bit cheaper than some of the Chelsea defenders. They've got good fixtures, at least on the first, 5 minus that Chelsea away game, where Chelsea still could be betting in new defenders and into their squad. They might not be as stout as they were last season at times. But so I'm kind of on the fence on Spurs defenders in general until we land down who's getting the minutes and how Conte is going to really deploy them. But Perisic could be a home run high. He could, score 3 goals in the first 5 games, or get yanked before 60 minutes 4 out of 5 times. So it's a tough call, but if you want to go for the risk and go for the high reward, Perisic is a great option. He's currently in the thinking for my team, but I'm kind of on the fence on it.
Would you think about waiting until game week 3 to bring in Spurs wingback?
You could. I don't think Southampton's going to score at Spurs in game week 1, unless JWP scores a free kick. Very likely. But in Chelsea, Chelsea probably scores. They probably don't keep it clean there. It could be an option. But Conte could start one of them game week 1 and 2, and then you feel like, all right, this is the guy, and then he switches it up on you the next game, and you screw it.
Yeah, that's true.
So I can't give solid advice there. It's like do you want to wait and see, or do you want to roll the dice kind of feeling?
Would you consider any of the center backs or even Lloris to start the season with, or you don't think they're worth the money?
I think Lloris in that price point, you're going to go 5-5. You got Alisson, you got Ederson. They're going to keep more cleans. Alisson's going to get more bonus. Takes up a Liverpool spot, but I wouldn't go to Lloris. I think they kind of priced him out of the game, putting him at that spot with those other two in that price point. Romero is the only one I think that's really got that promise, and he's shown some attacking output, and on corners and getting his head on the ball in good situations before he does like a bit of a run into the attacking third. But he's at 5. Perisic is 5.5. Doc is 5. So if I'm going to go there, I'm probably going to go, Sessegnon's 4.5. Jed Spence is 4.5. From a price perspective, unless we just really don't know if the wingbacks are going to be on and who's getting minutes, you could go with a safe route and get the minutes and go with Romero, but probably not the way I'd want to go this season. There could be periods of the season that works though.
Yeah, sounds good. Anyone else wants to add anything to the Spurs discussion? Did we miss anything that we should have talked about?
Yeah, just my memory keeps going back to last season before Doherty got injured under Conte. He was just literally flying. I mean, he almost felt like everybody was, cramming to get him in this team.
Yeah.
So this is possible. I mean, especially after the comments that Conte made about Jetspin signing, right? He said like something to the effect of like, this is an investment from the club, and kind of distanced himself from the signing. So, I mean, if I have to bet, I would say Doherty is his first choice at right back at Spurs. And since he's valued at 5, that's a great price point, because at 5 you have so many good defenders across the board. Like you have the Villa wing backs, full backs, you have Zinchenko, you have Walker and Cucurella. Depends on if Cucurella moves to City. So, I mean, if this thing doesn't work out, then you can easily switch to another 5 million defender. So for those reasons, I like Doherty.
Good point. All right. If that's all about Spurs, let's move on to our next phase, which is Arsenal. So, Yogesh, I'm going to mostly direct the questions to you. And then, of course, anyone else, please feel free to chime in. First, of course, both these guys, I mean, Saka had a wonderful season last year. Jesus, the new kind of Marquis signing for Arteta, replacing Aubameyang and Lacazette, right? So, and they're both priced nicely, right, at 8 million. Very, very nice price. Especially Jesus's price was kind of surprising. Everyone was kind of expecting him to be at least 8.5, 9-ish region. So, what do you think? Like, if again, kind of similar question to the Kane Son, if you can only go for one, because they're kind of priced similarly, who do you go for to start the season with?
Yeah, I would personally go for Jesus, because he has been brought in by Arteta to play a key role. Like he's going to be the number 9 for Arsenal. He's going to be the central figure, and basically he's going to be the main man to score the goals and basically lift the attacking output of the team. So I mean, quick comparison, like last season we had Lacazette, right? And he was good in linking up the play with the wide forwards like Martinelli and Saka, bringing them into the play. Jesus can do that, as well as, I mean, he will follow up and run into the box and finish off his chances, right? He's like highly energetic. He will run all around. He's infectious. He will raise the level of the team. The Arsenal would be more potent, pressing from the front. So for all those reasons, I feel Jesus is a great bet. I mean, I can't believe like 8 million. I mean, the reason I guess the FPL priced him at 8, because at that time the move to Arsenal was not done, I guess. And they just went by the last season points at City. I think he scored somewhere around 120 points over the last season. So probably that factored in his pricing. But now he's like, for me, he's like awesome value at 8. And the other thing with Jesus is like, I mean, he's gonna play each and every game. There is no question. And Premier League, even if if Arteta chooses to bring in Nketiah later on into the game, I would see Jesus moving wide because of his versatility, and therefore he's kind of very important figure for Arsenal. So between the two, I would choose Jesus, but there is no reason for to go for both. I mean, actually, Saka again. I mean, the the positive with Jesus is like he's gonna improve the output for Ødegaard, Saka, Martinelli, because everybody is gonna be more involved in the game now with him, with a more dynamic forward like him. So yeah, both are great values. But if I have to pick one, I'll go Jesus.
Do you think Saka is the best 8.0 million midfielder right now?
He's right up there. I mean, I was looking at those 8 million midfielders. So you have Saka, Mount, Diaz. I think I would rate those three as my first three options. I mean, Mahrez and Foden are great, but with Pep's team, you never know
Mhm.
who is playing, and I would try to avoid that. As I mean, X minutes is important, and yeah, for those reasons, Saka is definitely in top three amongst the 8 million midfielders for the reasons that I mentioned. He's again one player who's indispensable to the team. He's going to play each and every game for Arsenal. So yeah, I don't see any reason why he won't be a good value for money.
Do we know who is on penalties? By any chance, I've been asking everyone, and no one seems to have the answer.
No, that's a very tricky question. I mean, if I have to go by my gut feeling, I think Arteta would initially give the penalties to Jesus because he's the main man. I mean, despite his poor penalty record and other things, I mean, he would probably get the penalties initially. So, like last season, what happened was like in the game against Chelsea when Arsenal got the penalty, Martinelli was on the pitch, but Saka took it. For the following game, again, Arsenal got penalty against Manchester United, but that time Martinelli was not on the pitch, and therefore again Saka took it. And then the final game where against Everton, where Martinelli won the penalty and he took the penalty himself. So it's all up in the air. I've heard Arteta saying in the press conference that Martinelli is his preferred penalty kick taker, but then you never know. So, and with all the incomings in Arsenal, so I don't know. Like, I mean, it's there is no clear answer to that.
Yep, absolutely. Anything you guys want to add to this, Jamie or Dan? Jesus versus Saka.
I'll be very surprised if Jesus is not in my game week 1 team. I like to play it a little safe to begin with, and Jesus is going to be so highly owned. That
Isn't he the highest owned player right now? Something like that, like 70%.
I think he is the highest owned player. I like to get a bit more riskier as the season goes on, not right off the bat, and then just lose ground straight away. And especially around that price point up front, there's not really much competition. Whereas Saka, you have Luis Diaz and James Maddison. No one mentions. I've got my eye on him because he's looking pretty spicy off season. So yeah, for me, Jesus is the one.
Yeah, I'm actually disappointed that. Sorry, I was going to say I'm disappointed that he started scoring so many goals in preseason. I was hoping secretly he stays under the radar. Jesus, like now he has got too much attention. He was always going to be in my team, irrespective of the effective ownership, because typically, or basically because of the way he's going to fit into the system for Arteta. So, yeah, he's
very underpriced at 8 million. I think.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Anything else?
I got a question for you. So Arsenal scored I think 61 goals last season. In the way you were talking of Jesus kind of increasing output, I'm curious of your thoughts. How much more, I assume, would you think they score this year with this squad, with Jesus coming in the fold? What level of attacking goals do you think this squad has them this year?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jamie. I mean, if you consider only Jesus in isolation, I would say, I mean, the goals, I mean, Lacazette scored 3 goals, Nketiah scored 4-5 goals, Aubameyang scored 2 goals. So we were like really poor, and that was really the main area we were lacking last season. If things go well, I see Jesus giving at least 20 goal contributions, that is goals plus assists this season. Yeah, and I'm also mindful of the fact that Arsenal are still in the market for a wide attacker, because we bid for Rafinha. That bid didn't go through because of his interest for Barcelona. They are seriously considering to bring in one more wide attacker. So, and also I believe they are gonna add somebody like Tielemans as a central midfielder. So I mean, we'll just have to wait and watch. But if you are only considering Jesus in isolation, I'm very optimistic about the output from him. Like I seriously fancy him scoring a lot of goals, like double digit at least, and then he would also be contributing to assists for other players like Saka, Martinelli. So
yeah, I guess the reason I ask is right now I don't have Jesus in my squad, but maybe it's the Spur in me. I can't put a red shirt in there. But even though Spurs jerseys all have red AIA all over them, so I'm a little bit of a wait and see. I'm kind of willing to maybe risk away from Jesus, but I just curious of just the team as a whole. 61 goals. Jesus comes in. You think that bumps up to 70? I think Spurs scored 69 last year. If you take away the Nuno era, obviously during Conte, it was a lot higher goals per game. And then, Arsenal had their periods where they weren't doing so great in the beginning of the season either, and probably ramped that up. And it's going to fluctuate just out of curiosity, general trend. Because 70 goals a season is there's FPL points there. So we'll be going there. As much as it pains me, I'll certainly go there. It's times of the season.
Yeah, I would like you to stay away from him as far as you can.
Yogesh wants to beat you this year. Yeah.
I'll try.
Anything you guys want to add, Wrangler or ZT? Any preference out of these two, Wrangler?
I would like to add two things. One is for Jesus, and another one is probably against. And I'm gonna extend whatever Jamie said. So let's first talk about the for. So I actually checked this, last year's stat, and at 8 million price amongst all the attackers, Jesus actually has the highest non-penalty XGI. So definitely, I think it's 0.6 or 0.65, something like that, while Mahrez has 0.55 if you remove the penalty, right? So definitely it's very much encouraging. However, one thing I would like to mention that, Jesus always underperforms compared to his XG. If you see his stats, like almost all the time, like even last season, he had I think 12 XG and he scored I think 8 goals. Even 2019, I think I had this stat, 2019-20, he had 21 XG and he scored only 14 goals.
Yeah,
so
his conversion rate is a little questionable.
City is a team where you get a lot of, attacking options, right? You get lots of ball to, and ball to score, right? Where he was not able to, convert much of them. Now, going back to that, whatever Jamie was saying, that now in Arsenal, he's not gonna get chances like Man City, right? So do you think he'll be able to, convert whatever chance he gets, or he's gonna be still underperforming? That's the concern I have right now. So
Yeah, there is other way to look at it, right? I mean, the fact that he is one of the players who has very high XG, that tells you something, right? He's always busy. He makes himself available in those dangerous areas to score goals. I admit that, I mean, he's not the greatest of finishers, but I don't see. I mean, the other thing is we have to factor in is at Manchester City, he was more of a peripheral role. I mean, he used to play in all kinds of positions. A lot of games he was brought in as a sub. Here at Arsenal, he's going to be the main man. He's going to play each and every game, consistently get the start. Even if he doesn't score for a couple of games, be rest assured that he's going to start the next game. So, and I mean, I was just looking at the stats at City. He played some 99 games as a starter for City. He scored 53 goals and 23 assists. So that's a
pretty good return.
That's a very good return. I mean, and all things considered, he's just valued at 8. So there are a lot of reasons to go for Jesus. So those are some of the points. And the other thing is I mean, we have the World Cup, right? I mean, Jamie talked about Kane and the World Cup factor, right? I mean, Gabriel Jesus, Brazil. I mean, he's definitely targeting that number 9 role for Brazil, and I'm sure that he would have all the backing at Arsenal to do that. I mean, all the motivation to do that. So
good points. Yeah,
that's one of the things I was going to say. Just taking data out of the equation for a second, you have to consider Jesus is now the main man at Arsenal. He's not just a bit part player like he was at Man City. that's going to probably increase his confidence. And I really believe in that having effect positively on a player. So I see his performances increasing purely because of that factor.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, all good discussion. Let's move on to the next section.
There's a couple of questions in the chat if you want to go to regarding. Oh, you're talking about Martinelli now, so never mind.
Yeah, we're going. So yeah, I mean the next one is kind of the one price range down, right? So you're talking about Martinelli and Ødegaard. Of course, this price range is important because we want to get all the big at the back. We want to get all the premiums up front. So we need to get players in this price range, right? 6 million, 5.5 million, and so on. And Martinelli has been very popular, at least in the FPL Twitter community, in that particular price range. Is there any reason that you would go for an Ødegaard who is more secure for minutes over Martinelli's explosiveness, right? Is there any reason at all, Yogesh?
Yeah, I mean, Ødegaard is more of a stable play. I mean, I would say kind of a boring play. So, I mean, when you compare him with Martinelli, and especially if you have the assurance that he's going to start for Arsenal, I think it's a no-brainer to start with Martinelli over Ødegaard. However, I would add a caveat, like I mentioned earlier, right? Arsenal are actively in the market for a wide attacker. And the one position that would be impacted if Arsenal indeed go and buy that wide attacker is going to be Martinelli. There's no question about Ødegaard. There's no question about Saka. There's no question about Jesus. All three would start no matter what. So that's my only hesitation with Martinelli. And the other thing is the transfer window closed by end of August, right? So there is still a long way to go.
Yeah.
And this is probably the first season where before the transfer window shuts, we already be done by 4 game weeks by then. So, if you think about it that way, Martinelli is a good pick. I mean, you would get more clarity once you approach the season kickoff. And by then, if you don't see any signs of Arsenal signing any new player, I would definitely start Martinelli. At 6, he's a great value. And in terms of his competition versus Smith Rowe, I think the left attacking forward position is Martinelli's for now. You can see that the minutes last season was only 1866, which was pretty much about 50% of the overall season time. Like 34-20 is the overall season, right? So the main reason for that was like Smith Rowe started all the games for Arsenal initially last season, and then he went off injured, and that's when Martinelli came in, and Martinelli had the string of games together for Arsenal. So typically how Arteta does is like, I mean, if a player is doing well, he normally doesn't replace him. So right now I fancy Martinelli, and I'll just keep an eye on if Arsenal make any moves in the transfer market. But if not, he's a good bet for the first 4 game weeks at least, because there are some really good fixtures in there, like Leicester home, Bournemouth away, Fulham home. Martinelli can be a great option for those games.
Absolutely. A question for all of you, maybe. Do any of you see anyone else outside Martinelli, and of course we'll talk about Neto, in this particular price range? Do you see anyone better than Martinelli out of all the teams? Anyone else? Or do you all think Martinelli is kind of the go-to guy at this particular price range? Jamie?
Martinelli's in my squad right now in my latest draft. I think from an attacking output, there's not much. If he gets the minutes, there's not much that can match him in that price. So I think, if you're going, I'd just go lower and go 5.5, and save $500,000 and go with a Neto, or go with somebody in that bracket. But Martinelli adds so much upside. I mean, and maybe this is I'm having trouble this season thinking in terms of not going with people that I was successful with last year.
Yeah.
And Martinelli got me a brace last season. And so there's, even though he's an Arsenal player, there's my just more logical brain says, he's still a good pick. And especially at 6, I thought he'd end up being higher. So, I mean, sure, the minutes, I agree with you, Yogesh. He wasn't getting any minutes at the beginning of the season. He wasn't even close to being an option. So if you look at the second half, he was, still kind of the main man on that wing, or preferred when both he and Smith Rowe are healthy. I think it's his spot to take away. But yeah, you got to keep an eye on if they buy somebody. That's always the trick at the start of the season.
Yeah. Jamie, you should have Martinelli only because he took that penalty away from Saka in the final.
that was an extra bonus that he helped me when he wasn't even in my squad. Yeah, definitely. But if he's on penalties, that's the other thing. If he's taking pens, then as a $6 million midfielder, that's
unbelievable value. Yeah,
that's crazy. Yeah. That's like no brainer. Keep him in the squad.
There's not too much competition in that price point. Like Jamie said, you can go down to like a Neto or Wisa or even cheaper. Other than that, you have maybe Rashford at 6.5 possibly, and then Harvey Barnes and Grealish you're not too keen on. All of the good assets at 8 million. So I feel like Martinelli is by far the best option at that price.
Yeah. Anything else, Wrangler or ZD, you want to add to this topic?
No, I think it was covered pretty well.
Okay.
Go Martinelli.
All right, let's move on to the Arsenal defenders. Of course, we are just showing Tomiyasu and Tierney up here, but there are tons of options. Well, not tons, but at least a few options that we can go to. Zinchenko now is at Arsenal. We don't know yet what Arteta's plan is with him, but potentially he has at least some assurance for minutes. Definitely, otherwise he wouldn't move from Man City, from one bench to the other. There is Gabriel, who was the best defender at Arsenal, pretty much secured for minutes. There's White at 4.5 million also. He's probably fighting a little bit with Saliba this year, maybe a little bit. So what are your thoughts, Yogesh? Like fantastic fixtures from a defensive perspective, right? First few. So what do you think?
Yeah, so if I look at the first two fixtures, I'm honestly not that keen on Arsenal defense because the first game, Crystal Palace away, again that Friday night fixture, the opening game of the so it's gonna be a tough game, and I fancy Palace to at least score a goal there. So, and again, Leicester is a free scoring side; they can score against any team. So with Vardy, Maddison, those likes, even without Tielemans, they will be a potent force attack wise. So I'm not that keen on Arsenal defense for the first two game weeks, but maybe after that, yes. And that also gives us time to assess on how Arteta is going to play some of his new signings like Zinchenko. He would know better on how he's going to play the system. And I guess Tomiyasu is injured, so you would probably get more clarity around him as well. And I would definitely not go with Tierney. Because of his injury issues. I read a stat somewhere like, of all the Arsenal games so far, he has played only 54% of the games. So he's very injury prone. So yeah, and at 5 million, you have a lot of other great options across the board. So I might not go to Tierney, but I'll keep a close eye on Zinchenko particularly. If he gets regular minutes at 5, he could be a great value for money. Other than that, I'm not particularly keen on any Arsenal defenders, to be honest, because there are a lot of other options elsewhere. For Tomiyasu, I would just add a point that if he's gonna be, if we know by the first game of the season that he's fit to play, then he's a good add. But then it depends whether you are adding him as your fourth defender or a fifth defender, right? If he's a fourth defender, then yeah, you might as well go with Tomiyasu. In my case, I am structuring my team in a way that I would have a 4 million defender as my fifth defender. So I am not opting to go with Tomiyasu because I would rather have a cheaper defender coming off my bench if need be. So it really depends on your structure and what you are thinking with your team. But yeah, those are my thoughts.
Do you think Zinchenko still would have minutes when Tierney is fit for the left back? Do you think Zinchenko will get minutes at the central midfield?
Yeah, it's a possibility. It all depends on what we do in the transfer market. I expect a couple of more signings at Arsenal, like definitely a wide attacker and a central midfielder. But in case if the central midfielder doesn't come in, then I see Zinchenko playing that left-sided number 8 for Arsenal alongside Ødegaard and Partey, the number 6. So yeah, I see a team where Tierney plays at left back and Zinchenko plays as a left central midfielder. That's a possibility, but it's all open right now because we need to wait and see how the window goes. And once we get closer to the season, and like I said, I mean, those first two fixtures, you really should not be compelled to own an Arsenal defender. I mean, you can wait, you can have that wait and see approach and see what system Arteta plays and who are his crucial defenders to get going. Yeah.
All right. One question in the chat connected to this. So, who do you all think is the best 4.5 million defender for the first few game weeks? I mean, of course, we are talking about Tomiyasu probably not being much of an option with his injury and everything else. Who do you really think is the outstanding 4.5, Jamie?
First 2 weeks, first 2 to 3, I'd say Wolves, Aït-Nouri or Jonny. And probably Dan can take it away when we get to the Wolves.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. Yeah.
But before they play Spurs, those I can't remember exactly who it is, but those first 2 fixtures are nice.
I agree. I would say for 4.5 the Wolves win backs.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I'm also thinking about having both of them in my team. You know, I mean, there is a yeah. I mean, I mean, it gives a lot of flexibility in beefing up your midfield and also beefing up your forward line. I mean, it's how you want to play your structure and what your transfer plans are like 2-3 weeks down the line. So those are attacking fullbacks, and you can see Jonny and Aït-Nouri, contributing to assist and such. So yeah, they are good options at 4.5.
Could be great value. Yeah, absolutely. Anything Wrangler or ZD you guys want to add for this section?
No, I think it's pretty well. I think it's pretty well covered. I think it's a wait and see. That's my personal opinion too, like Yogesh. Although, like, for Arsenal, after game week 8, the fixture actually turned bad. So I think this is the window actually, like, before, the World Cup. I think we take it between game week 3 to 7 maybe, or I don't know, game week 1, but at least wait and see. And, then you go for that. So.
All right. Anything else that we did not touch on Arsenal? I think we covered most of the things. Yogesh, you want to add anything else for Arsenal assets?
No, I can't think of anything else. I don't think Ramsdale is an option at 5, especially considering the other goalkeeper options. So I would stay away from Ramsdale too for now. Yeah, but the fixtures look good from game week 3 from defense standpoint. Like Bournemouth away, Fulham home, Aston Villa home. Those 3 games look good for us.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So let's move on to the Wolves section. And again, my questions are going to be directed mostly to Dan, but please feel free to chime in.
I don't think Jamie likes Neto. He just left.
He just left.
On screen.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about Neto, the star boy, right? So what do you think of him?
So I think Twitter was very hyped up on Neto for a while, and then it kind of died down a little bit. And then today, after his performance, everyone's back on the train of Neto. He's a very, very good pick for 5.5 million. If you're going for a budget enabler, if you're looking for a Wolves player, Neto is a very, very good pick. Would he be in my team if it wasn't for his price, or if it wasn't for the fact I need an enabler? Probably not. But people need to remember that he's in there because he enables you to get a much better 10 players elsewhere. I watched the game today and he looked very, very good and very, very sharp. He can play as a forward. He can play as a winger. He can play off the striker. So he's very versatile. And so I expect him to do very well this season if he does not get injured. We have to remember last season he had that very major injury. He broke his kneecap, which is not a nice injury to have.
Yeah.
So obviously he came back quite slow. But the last couple of games, he scored against Man City, scored against Liverpool. He's a very good player, and he would definitely be my pick for a Wolves attacker.
Yeah, and especially those first few fixtures, right? Of course, Tottenham in game week 3, barring that, those first few like 6 up to game week 6 looks like prime, right? For Wolves, even from an attacking standpoint. I mean, we all know Wolves didn't score many last season, but those fixture just looks perfect, right?
Yeah, and I watched the game today, and we played 4 at the back, and which is what I expected us to try out because Lage very much favors 4 at the back.
Yep.
And we also had Morgan Gibbs-White in there, who offered a lot of creativity. We looked a lot better on the ball. We got a lot more chances than we did last season. Granted, our opposition today were very poor, but we definitely looked more fluid in attack. I've been watching a lot of the training videos in Spain, and they do a lot of attacking drills. And Morgan Gibbs-White and surprisingly Dendoncker were in a lot of the attacking drills. So as I predicted, today they played Dendoncker just behind Neto, Gibbs-White, and Jimenez. So we were just a lot more fluid in attack. You saw Moutinho switching with Dendoncker once in a while. When Dendoncker went off, you saw Gibbs-White go into that central attacking midfielder role, and Podence went out wide. So I'm going to keep using the word fluid, but it's something we haven't seen at Wolves the whole of last season. We were very rigid. We had a formation and we stuck to it the whole game. So it was really nice to see that today. So I recommend Neto at the 5.5 price for sure. I don't think you can really go wrong, especially given how high his effective ownership is going to be, which is another thing.
Yep. Anyone has any con, like anything against Neto price point or anything like that? Maybe not as flexible.
The con for Neto is no Wolves player is nailed. I don't like using the term nailed. I talked to you about this in DMs the other day.
Yeah.
For me, I don't really know what nailed means. Is he going to play 90 minutes every game? Definitely not. Is he going to be rested once in a while? Yes, he will. Because we have Hwang, we have Podence, we have Gibbs-White, we have Jimenez, we have Neto. We have all these players who all rotate the same positions. So he's not going to play 90 every game for sure.
Nice.
But he's first choice. So he will play most games.
So all thumbs up for Neto. Go ahead, Jim.
I was going to say, I'd argue that a con would be the fact that he plays for Wolves. Sorry, Dan.
I don't want to say it, but he's not the best. So
I was just thinking, like the same question I asked Yogesh: how many goals do Wolves score this season compared to last? I mean, you can only go up, but
yeah, I mean, I have no idea until I see more games. We definitely look better today with 4 at the back.
Yeah. My own answer, I expect Wolves to do better this season. I think it was, they had a very. I had some Wolves players at the beginning of the season. You know, I toyed with the idea of bringing in Trincao. I thought he was looking great in the beginning of the season last year. I didn't end up doing it, but I fell into the Adama trap early before he went to Barcelona, and when he was actually looking good. I'm curious to see how Wolves do and if they improve, because last season there were just long stretches where they just weren't putting up any kind of chances. So if Neto coming into the fold, being more of a mainstay in the lineup, does that, then yeah, he's a great pick at this bracket. But it's hard to overlook him at that price, because if you get a 5-5 starter who's got actual attacking underlying data that gives him a chance to score FPL points at that price, it's great. Just does Wolves give him the chance to get enough points or get enough consistent points that you're like, I'm happy using a starting position in my lineup for this player?
Exactly. He's a top quality player, and he's on a lot of set pieces too, so he has that factor. Last season we had a lot of issues. We had no attacking midfielder the whole season. We practically played Moutinho and Neves in the center pretty much the whole season. They're both amazing players, but we didn't have anyone who could grab the ball and just drive into the box, be very direct. And if Morgan Gibbs-White stays at Wolves, we have a player who can do that. Neto can also do that. And Neto was out for most of the season. Podence was constantly getting injured, and he's one of our best players also. Hwang was off form for a lot of the season. Jimenez was getting really frustrated with his headband constantly. You saw it. He was getting 2 red cards. He got a lot of yellows. You could really feel his frustration at this headband he has to wear. But all of these guys are now getting a full preseason. and there just seems to be a lot of positivity and confidence around the camp.
Mhm.
So you would hope that they're going to improve a little bit. But again, if they didn't have these fixtures and he wasn't this price, I probably wouldn't recommend him. But you can't
I think
overlook those factors.
the fixtures are just too nice to avoid, right? I mean, you get in, if it doesn't work, you can always back out. Of course, we have kind of an extra wild card this year too. So yeah, it's I wouldn't say a no-brainer, but at least at that price point, there are not many options anyways, right? Anything else, Wrangler or ZD, you guys want to add?
No, nothing from my side.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the fact that Ruben Neves is staying back at Wolves, it's a huge boost for the team. I mean, and yeah, in terms of FPL, obviously we are not going to talk about those central midfielders, but he's like a metronome. He keeps the ball moving along across both sides of the pitches, and I mean his long balls, diagonal balls is something which Neto can exploit with his pace. I like both these players, and Neto is like Dan mentioned, like at that value, considering the fixtures, he's like a good bet. I mean, sometimes you don't have to overthink, right? You can't get the maximum out of everybody. So, I mean, you just have to go with the rational option, looking at some key aspects, and Neto definitely fits the bill.
Yeah. You're right about Neves. If we keep Neves, and it looks increasingly likely, that's like a brand new signing.
Exactly.
I never expected him to stay at Wolves.
Yep.
And we had Moutinho. I thought he was going to leave too, and he signed a new contract. So if we keep Moutinho and Neves, they're like new signings to me. But we really need someone in front of them. That's the issue we've had.
Yeah.
Neves is good enough to play for any Champions League side, so he's that good.
He's the best player I've ever seen at Wolves, no doubt. And I've been a fan for 30 years. He's easily the best player I've ever seen play for Wolves.
Yeah, he's too good.
Nice. All right, let's talk about the Wolves defenders. We kind of touched on this. And of course, even last season for a long time, Hosasa was an option for FPL. Even Cody was an option. Semedo was even some teams, right, at some point of time when Wolves were really doing good defensively. These two guys, right? So both of them are at 4.5, and we are talking about that particular price point, and especially given their fixtures. So what are your thoughts on these two guys, Dan?
These two are the standout defenders for Wolves, no doubt. The fact that they've priced Cody and Sarr at 5 million, to me, makes them a no-go. I see no reason to go Cody, especially if we go 4 at the back. I see no reason to go for Cody. He really overperformed his XG last year for sure. He got a few goals and everyone just jumped on him. But I wouldn't go for Cody. And Sarr is a great goalkeeper, of course, but now you have Mendy at 5 million. You can go an extra 0.5 and get Edison, or you can go down to a 4.5. I see no reason to have Jose Sarr in your team. So these two for me are really standout. We don't have much competition at wingback right now. We have Jonny, Aït-Nouri, and Semedo. Semedo is currently injured. He's back in training, individual training, so I don't think he's going to be out for too long. But while he's out, there's no one to compete with these guys. We had a really good academy player called Ryan Giles, who I thought might push for a starting place. He left. Marcel left, and we haven't replaced them. So as of now, these two, I'm not going to use the term nailed again, but these two are absolutely first choice at the wingback spots.
Do you prefer one or the other, like given their attacking potential?
Yeah, I get a lot of questions about these two. They both have pros and cons, and the fact is, one game week you're going to see Jonny get 12 points and Aït-Nouri 1, and the next game week the other way around. Aït-Nouri is on some set pieces. He's a very good crosser of the ball. Jonny is a lot more direct. He charges into the box. He gets in better goal-scoring positions. So especially after watching the game today, I'm leaning more towards Jonny. But I don't want to overlook Aït-Nouri. He's a very good player.
Dan, I've got a question for you. The one thing that puts me off Aït-Nouri is kind of some of the discipline issues that were going on last year.
Yeah.
What any insight from you, who's probably more in tune with what was actually going on than me, more looking at it on the peripheral. But is that an issue or concern with Aït-Nouri and Bruno Lage?
Yeah, it's hard to tell. There was a lot of comments from Lage last season about his young players having some behavioral issues. We didn't have too many really young players in the team, so it kind of points towards Aït-Nouri being one of them, and the other one being Hoover, who was definitely one of the guys. So I think because he's so young, I think he does possibly have a bit of a behavioral issue. But I'm sure they're going to figure out preseason, and there isn't really much competition for him at left wing back. In my opinion, he's easily our best left wing back. That spot should be his. I wouldn't worry too much about that right now. When Semedo comes back, I would worry about all three of these. Jonny can play on the left and he can play on the right. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some games Jonny left wing back, Semedo right wing back. A lot of the rumors were saying it was Jonny and Jimenez who had the fallout with Lage, and I absolutely don't believe that one either. So I don't know. I don't have any insight into the truth there.
I mean, at least the preseason, there is no sign of that, right? Both of them, Jonny is playing pretty much all games and everything. So
yeah, Wolves post a lot of behind-the-scenes videos on YouTube, and I watch them all. And the camp looks very happy from what it seems. I've seen Lage have one-on-one conversations with Aït-Nouri. I think if there was an issue, it's going to be put behind them. I don't think Lage would let it carry on at this point. If I had to say which one was first choice, I think Jonny is slightly ahead of Aït-Nouri right now.
Okay.
But again, if Semedo is out for those first two games, it's 50-50 between these two for me.
Do you know for sure how long Semedo is out for?
I don't have any news on that right now. He's back in training individually, but he's not in any competitive matches or training matches yet.
Okay. All right. So
Jonny has. I mean, I was going to say Aït-Nouri has better assist potential, but then Jonny went ahead and got an assist today. So it's really hard to focus on these two.
Yeah, true.
Dan, I had a question. So do you think Lage will continue to play 4 at the back? And if that is the case, do you think these two guys' attacking outputs would be impacted?
I think it's going to be opposition dependent. I thought seeing 4 at the back today that it might make these two sit back a little bit and be less attacking, but they really weren't. They were both charging down the wings, and Jonny got an assist. I think we're going to be less likely to keep clean sheets with 4 at the back, that's for sure. I think we're still going to see a lot of games with us playing 5 at the back, especially against like the likes of Tottenham, possibly even Newcastle, because we've also signed Nathan Collins, who looks like a very good centre back, and we have Cody, we have Bolly, we have Kilman, Nathan Collins, Toti Gomez, and Yerson Mosquera. We have all of those guys who are very good quality centre backs. I don't know why we would have all of those guys and play 4 at the back every game.
Yeah.
So I do think we'll see some games 5 at the back for sure.
Good question, Yogesh. All right, so let's move to the last part of the Wolves section. Are there any other players that we did not talk about, at least throughout the season, could be options? And I think there was a connected question from Rajesh as well. Any new attackers that Wolves bought or are considering?
We were linked with Polinia for a long time, and then he went to Fulham, and I haven't really seen any concrete news of signings since then, other than Nathan Collins. I know we've said that we're trying to sign players, and we've identified midfield as a place we need to make a signing, but I haven't seen any concrete news. Keeping people like Morgan Gibbs-White is effectively a new signing. He's so good. I'll be so disappointed if he leaves. He's exactly the kind of player that Wolves have been missing. So at 5.5 million, these two guys are dark horses for me, who are completely overlooked.
What do you think is the preferred front three for Wolves? Is it more Jimenez, Neto, and Podence, something like that? At least,
in my opinion, Jimenez, Neto, and Podence is our best front three. Okay. I don't know what Lage sees at this point, but to me, it's easily those three. Podence is an amazing player. He has issues with injuries. That's the problem. Yeah. He gets injured a lot, but when he plays, he's a little magician.
He is.
And he somehow scores headers when he's like 4 foot tall. Yeah, and Gibbs White was all over the field today and very skillful, very direct. He charges at defenders, which is not something we have in that center midfield right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really impressed with both of these guys today.
Nice. Okay.
So I was going to say we do have Hwang. They moved him from a forward to a midfielder, but they priced him at 6 million.
Yeah.
I don't see him being worth an extra 0.5 million to Podence, Gibbs White, or Neto. But if we do see some game, if we don't sign a striker, I do see Hwang playing some games in Jimenez's role.
Mm-hmm.
So he might be an out of position player at 6 million. And he's a very good player. He was so inconsistent for us last year. He would look like the best player on the field one game, and then he would disappear for the next 5 games.
Yeah. Could Jimenez himself be an option at some point of the season, you think, or at least beginning of the season?
Yeah, if Wolves pick up their attack and they don't look as terrible as they did last year, then he becomes an option again for sure. I think he's 7 million.
I think so.
He's on penalties and he's a very good penalty taker. So he could definitely become an option. If I wouldn't pick him for the first 6.
Mm-hmm.
I think most people are going to have Jesus and Haaland / Kane.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really a structure thing for me again.
Yeah.
But later on in the season, maybe when that horrible run of fixtures after game week 7 is finished, I think we have a really nice run of about 12 fixtures.
Mm-hmm.
He could possibly be an option again. I don't see why not.
Nice. All right. So we are kind of at the end of our team discussion. Anyone else wants to add anything to either of these Spurs, Arsenal, or Wolves? If not, we'll move on to the drafts. Wrangler or ZD, you guys are good to move on?
Yep.
All right. Okay, so first, again, I just want to make sure that everyone understands that these are very preliminary drafts. Jamie kind of did this based on our request. There are still 2 weeks to go, a lot of information to come in. These things will change, but these are just kind of the first thing, our first kind of drafts that they put together for this video potentially. So Jamie, you just want to quickly walk us through this? What are your initial thoughts for your first draft?
Yeah. So I kind of said earlier, Kane's kind of the first person on my team sheet. So he's in here. I find I'm focusing on what premiums I want is the first kind of decision that I make, and what combination, and then kind of fitting in that attacking, in this case, 5 spots. I'm not set on this formation. It could be a 4-3-3 or 4-4-2. But it's probably one of those 3: 5-3-2, 4-4-2, or 4-3-3. And so I'm finding I want to pick those players, Kane, Salah, in this case, Vardy, as where I'm putting most of my budget. And then I kind of fill in the defense line kind of last. Trent's always a mainstay in there. Cancelo, I could downgrade to Diaz if I'm trying to shift some money around. But this is kind of generally where I'm going, with at least 4 or 5 in the back. We know, based on kind of just points per million in terms of value, defenders have such great value. And I think a lot of people are looking towards big at the back. I'm probably not going to go with, 4 or 5 premium defenders. I'll probably stick to 3. 2, and Perisic is kind of on the border between premium versus not premium, but that's kind of where I'm headed on the defensive line. From kind of a midfield and forward, obviously the notable absence here is Haaland, and I'm trying to find, and I've kind of toyed with putting in Haaland, Kane, and Vardy as a front 3. In order to do that, obviously I have to take out Salah, but I can put in Diaz in his place. So that's kind of something I got to figure out between kind of the 4 of them, how I want to do it. And I like Vardy for a couple of reasons. He's proven that he starts pretty fast. I think he also finished last season really well. And with Leicester not having the distraction of Europe this year, I think over the course of the season, he's going to get more minutes. He's going to get less tired. And so from I think he's going to get the minutes off the bat. So I like him, and he's also low ownership. My playing philosophy is a bit of, FPL is an addition to watching the games. And if you can't have a little bit of fun and be a little bit different than people, then it's not as much fun to me, in my opinion. So I like being a little bit different. Not many people are picking Vardy. I think he's a great option. It allows me to kind of do a 2.5 EM, not a two premium, not a 3 kind of 2.5, because that price point's kind of nobody else in there. And then thinking kind of just around team structure and how much risk I'm willing to take right off the bat. I think with the World Cup and unlimited transfers, I'm very likely to take a wild card in somewhere between weeks 3 and 5. I think that allows you to attack the first couple fixtures. That first wild card is a shorter stint than a typical season. I think last season I wild carded in 8 and I lasted till 34. And I think that's fairly common that, 8 is kind of a later wild card last year. And everybody seems to kind of first jump there because of the fixture swings on some of the top clubs, but overlooking the fact that wild card doesn't last as long as maybe a typical season. So I'm willing to take a few more risks up front with my game week 1 team, with the knowledge that I can pivot. If I don't have Jesus, he's highly owned, and he goes and bangs it on the first couple games, I have an easy switch away from Vardy down to Jesus. I've got kind of a little bit more flexibility there, and I can wild card, and I'm not really too worried about it. I'll just preface that I want to also make sure that if Jesus does bang it, and if he does hit the ground running, and preseason is not just a hoax, I want to make sure that I make that move and don't hesitate, because I don't want to just be stubborn and stick with I don't want to bring in an Arsenal player, just because of fandom. Like, I got to recognize if he's playing well, I'll make that correction. And if Vardy's not hitting it, maybe Vardy matches him. We'll see. So that's kind of general thoughts. I think Mahrez is in here right now. He might not be in the end. Depends on how I feel about his minutes.
Yep.
But it gives me exposure to City's attack without Haaland in there. So there's one ticket to the lottery that is City's attack, and I played the lottery all season last year. I think I had all City midfielders across the season at different points of the season. So I like taking that lottery pick, because that team they just score so many goals, and it's spread around that odds are you're going to hit it every once in a while. And typically not one person has hit it. So I'm a little cautious on Haaland. Kind of general thoughts. Right now, Martinelli's in the squad. I think Villa's fixtures and Newcastle both have good starts. They kind of go sour after a couple weeks. But again, I'm kind of planning that early wild card. So I'm willing to take some of those early risks the way I see it right now.
Would you captain Kane over Salah
in game week 1?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I really love the Vardy pick, and as you kind of explained it makes more sense how you can move from him to Jesus if Jesus really hits it. I think your team kind of nicely hits all the price points, kind of pretty much everything that you would want in your team. One question I have for you is the 4.5 million goalkeeper. Are you kind of set on Raya, or are you kind of still thinking about it, like you want to go somewhere else?
Yeah, I haven't given goalkeeper much thought. It's kind of like the last thing I really think about. And if I am thinking short term, I did look at, what are the teams with the best short term fixtures from a defensive perspective, and all the goalkeepers for those teams are all 5. So 4 or 5 is just a little bit trickier. I wish, Brentford had better fixtures in the first 3 weeks. I think the first 2 are a little bit tricky. I can't remember exactly what they were, but long term, I think Raya is probably who I would wild card into. in 3 or 4 or 5 just because they've got good fixtures for the next chunk. But I haven't honestly given it much thought from a goalkeeper perspective. I do like the idea of a 4-5 goalkeeper and keeping my budget on my squad. Another thing I didn't really mention, but my bench is nothing. I'm putting all my money in my defense, so I don't have a 4-0 defender, and so from a budget perspective on my bench, it's the bare minimum that I could have.
Nice. Any questions for Jamie regarding his draft? If not, let's move on to the next one.
I'm locked into it now.
You cannot change it. All right, Yogesh, you want to walk through your initial draft?
Yeah, sure. So, like Jamie mentioned, right, I just tried to first nail down my premium picks, which I wanted. So, looking at all the premiums, I moved to Salah and Son, mainly because they are like most assured picks, in my opinion, going by the past and game week 1 with everything starting at 0. I like to go with those assured picks as my premium picks. So, and those two being midfielders and good early fixtures too. I like the way I can rotate the captaincy between these two for the initial weeks. So Salah and Son. And Jesus was just a gift freebie, so I just accepted that. I added him in the squad. So Jesus, Salah, Son, and then I started looking at my defense, and my thought process was who are going to be my 3 Liverpool assets that I need to pick. So popular options: Trent, Robo, and Salah, or Salah, Luis Diaz. I mean, you can switch it like anywhere between those 4 players, right? So I was thinking about the team structure, and I finally felt that this is the best way to go, in my opinion. Robertson can match Trent's output. I have a bias from last season. Like I moved out Trent in game week 31, and that worked out well for me. Robertson was literally flying towards the end of the season, and I just feel there's not going to be a big difference between the two, and I really didn't fancy going for both of them. So I picked Robertson, and then Luis Diaz seems to be a very good pick at 8 million. It also gives me the flexibility to move around if need be. So Diaz comes in, and Madison is, again, like I like the way Leicester play, and like Jamie mentioned, they have no European concerns. They don't have any games. They just play once every week. Madison is a very good pick from attacking standpoint. Again, he's valued at 8, and again, it gives me flexibility to move around if need be. So I'm primarily focusing on the structure, the pricing, and I just want to create a team that helps me move around if one of these guys don't work out initially. Like Walker is another player. I mean, I'm just having him as a placeholder for 5 million defender. I can move him to Cucurella if he goes to City. I really fancy Cucurella if he moves to City. Otherwise, I can go to Aston Villa fullbacks, or even Trippier or Zinchenko for Arsenal. So there are a lot of options there. And the Chelsea boys wingbacks, I feel like they're just awesome value for money at 6, and especially because the way Chelsea is going to strengthen the defense, they have made few signings at the back, and I expect them to add 1 or 2 more at the back, and basically that will give the license to these 2 wingbacks to play their natural game. So that's more of my thought process around structuring this team this way. And Neto, again, like we discussed earlier, like 5.5, he's an enabler, and I don't find a better value for money at that price point. I mean, I can do Neto to Martinelli, and probably downgrade one of my defenders, like Walker, to 4.5. But yeah, those are some of the options that I have.
You don't fear the Man City attack at all, not starting with Any of them?
Yeah, not particularly, because with Manchester City, it's always going to be the same case, right? I mean, you never know who's going to hit that jackpot in any particular game. Haaland, I'm just playing the wait and see game. I just want to see how he settles in into the new league. It's not going to be easy coming from Bundesliga and hit the ground running in Premier League. It's a different ball game altogether. So I'm prepared to be patient with him and just see how it goes. And yeah, with Salah and Son, I'm not concerned as my two premium picks. So
Fair
that's
enough.
the process. Yeah.
Any questions for Yogesh? Evening starts.
Well, Delap is there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess he probably goes to another PL team anyways. Right? So he might be actually a starting forward.
My only question is, are you worried about not having Trent?
Yeah, not particularly, Dan. Like I have cover from Robertson, and I was not going to go anyways with double Liverpool fullbacks there. So in any case, I was either going to go with Trent or Robertson. So I don't believe that there's going to be a much of a point difference between the two for the initial game weeks, honestly. So and with Luis Diaz, I have that covered. The other thought process is like, I mean, if I choose to upgrade Walker to say Trent Arnold, then I have to downgrade Luis Diaz to again that price point of 5.5 and 6 million midfielders, which is not very. I mean, there are not a lot of options there. So I think this has a nice balance with Luis Diaz and Robertson. So yeah.
Yogesh, when are you thinking about wild card? Because I talked about it a little bit, but I think it plays a big factor for me on what you do, or you don't have a premium striker, and if Kane or Haaland are just hitting the ground running, how are you going to get to them? I guess you'd have to give up Son or Salah to do it, but it's a couple moves, unless you're willing to just wait it out a couple weeks in the wild card. So just
Yeah, that's where I'm inclined to, Jamie. To be honest, like I'm not particularly concerned about Kane and Haaland, primarily because I'm covering them with Son and Salah. Because I don't really see a world where Kane and Haaland are scoring all the goals and Son and Salah are absolutely not doing anything as premium. So and in terms of wild card, I haven't made up my mind yet. I feel that the team has good players who can last until at least 8 game weeks. I particularly looked at those first 8 game weeks and saw how I can structure my team. So I should be able to navigate those initial weeks with transfers if need be. But yeah, that's my thinking right now. Still early days. I mean, there are a lot of transfers to happen, and
you're locked in, Yogesh. You're locked in.
Done.
All right.
All righty. Thank you, Yogesh. Dan, you want to walk us through your draft?
Yeah. First of all, I have to look at it because I can't remember what I sent you. I'm the kind of person who doesn't really make drafts until the last week of the season. I prefer to just gather all the information. So much changes even in 1 week. So I don't really think too much about the players I pick. I go more for structure. So I want to make sure I have an 8 million midfielder, a premium striker, and I'm leaning towards big at the back, but I haven't made my mind up yet. Yogesh and Jamie have covered most of the points. If Chelsea sign some centre backs and they look good defensively, it's hard for me to look past James and Chilwell. I just really like having them as assets, or more accurately, I don't like not having them as assets when they play. Because like Jamie said, part of this is enjoyment, and I don't enjoy watching Chelsea not owning James and Chilwell.
So doing backs, yeah.
Zinchenko, I'm not sure. I'm not sure on that spot. For me, Cancelo, Alexander-Arnold, at least one of James or Chilwell are pretty much set to be in my team. I haven't decided on the Zinchenko spot. I might downgrade to a cheaper player like a Wolves defender or someone else, or I might even upgrade and just go crazy big at the back just to be a little differential. but I really haven't decided. The only players I've truly set on here are Jesus, Salah, Alexander-Arnold, Cancelo, and one Chelsea wingback. Everyone else is still up in the air for me. I don't like not owning Kane. I have a real big feeling Kane is going to smash it at the start of the season. But I'm hesitant to give up Haaland to do it. So I am going to play around with a 3 to see how that works out. But yeah, honestly, I haven't decided a lot at this point. I'm a sort of person who does it late on. I haven't even thought about when I'm going to wildcard or any of this stuff yet. I want to see some transfers go through and watch some more preseason games.
It's a lot of asterisks, Dan.
Yeah, my entire team is full of asterisks.
6 asterisks.
Nice.
Yeah, I just, as Paz says in the comments, I just love the big backs. I'm a big fan of big at the back, especially with the resurgence of wing backs, attacking wing backs.
Yeah,
there's so much good value in attacking wing backs in FPL.
Yeah, I agree. But at the same time, the way they price defenders, the replacement is also good value.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm one who, I was very successful with big at the back last season. And now that everybody's there, I'm like, oh, maybe I don't want to do it this year.
That's a good point.
It's just because of the way like 4-5 and 5-0 defenders there are some gems in there that I think offer good value. I do like the idea of 5 at the back, and my only concern kind of with both your drafts are kind of both Chelsea defenders. I feel a little on the fence about. I didn't have either of them in my draft, which was say, kind of the biggest difference between our drafts. And Chilwell from he's recovering from a big injury. Does Tuchel plan to kind of ease him in? Alonso's still at the club. How does that work? James, obviously, James is a great option. And I think if I could fit him in with my team, I might. But at the same time, if, who Chelsea signs at center back may dictate whether or not he gets some games at right center back. And if he's a right center back in that squad, he's still providing value, but not as much as maybe a 6-0 defender should. So that was just my one kind of just big difference between our drafts.
Yeah, and exactly like you said, there's a lot of asterisks here. I even toyed with the fact of downgrading Cancelo and maybe putting Ederson in goal and going with a premium goalkeeper, which I never do, but I've definitely thought about it the way they've priced him this year.
Yeah, no, I like the fact that they're an option.
Yeah.
If you're just trying to I can't price myself to the defenders within that price range, maybe I can squeeze in as a goalie. But I tried it twice, and I'm like, I still revert back to the 4-5 because it's like nature of I don't want to spend the money there.
Yeah, same. I've also thought about having 2 8 million midfielders, just add a bit of flexibility to the team. I really like Maddison.
Yeah.
As an option. I've got a feeling about him. And I think it gives you a little bit more flexibility having 2 8 million midfielders in the middle. But I don't know who I would downgrade at the back. Again, a lot of preseason games to go. I will see what happens, especially with Chelsea.
Yeah, I think Chilwell kind of, I think someone was asking whether he would be eased in at all or not. There is, of course, a possibility, especially if Alonso doesn't leave the club. I think Chilwell probably is not the to-go guy. At least in the beginning, he will kind of be eased in. Chilwell will be a very good asset at some point of the season, maybe by the time we get to our first wild card. But I will be a little iffy about him just to have him in the game week 1 draft for sure. James for sure, but Chilwell not as much.
I think I'm more likely to go with one Chelsea defender. This is just something I threw together, and I liked having the two colours on the end matching.
Symmetry.
That's really how much thought I've put into this at this point.
Yeah, nice.
I should have put Neto in the middle. That's really bothering me. So if you could get off the screen at this point.
All right. Anything for Dan, Wrangler or ZD? Otherwise, we'll move to the last part of our video. We are already into 1 hour 40 minutes. We'll try to finish this up quickly. So there are some questions that we collected from Twitter, mostly from our FPL USA buddies. Some of these we already have answered. So if something looks redundant, we'll pass, but we'll try to cover as much as possible. So first question is from Onkar. He's one of our FPL meets lead in the New York area. He's working with Dan. So for Jamie, first of all, hypothetically given a choice between a World Cup final and a North London derby, which one would you go to?
Is the United States of America in the World Cup final?
I was going to say that it depends on who's in the final, right?
If the U.S. is in the World Cup final, I think that's the answer. I'll go to the North London Derby the next season. If it's just any other team, I probably don't care to go to the World Cup final. I'll watch it on TV.
Did you pick yet which games you're going to watch in?
I sent some options, and the way they described it to me, it was that it's hit or miss. So it may be kind of a circular process to kind of go back and forth depending on if they can get tickets. And my initial thought was, what do you mean the Premier League can't get tickets to Premier League matches?
I know, right? Yeah.
But so we'll see. I put in kind of 3 options of kind of pairs of games because I get to go to 2 of them. So we'll see. I haven't heard back yet.
I'm looking forward to coming with you. Thank you for inviting me.
You can pay your own way then.
I'm just kidding. Yeah. Going back to that previous question, just kind of off topic, would you prefer the US to win the World Cup, or would you prefer Tottenham to win a trophy?
Ooh.
I would prefer
win a trophy.
It's a tough one.
Is it? Not for me.
Yeah, well, it's a tough one because, I mean, statistically, every 4 years, it's got to be the U.S. winning the World Cup. But at the same time, it's like Tottenham's got to win. It depends on the trophy.
Premier League.
That's.
Yeah.
I'll go U.S. It's just there's too much going on with the World Cup. Is another level of underdog that would make that a U.S. World Cup win just unbelievable.
Absolutely. All right. Next question from Ankar was, which goalkeepers are you looking forward to having in your FPL teams? Wrangler or ZD, one of you guys want to take this? ZD, maybe.
I always actually prefer 4.5 goalkeeper, but as we are discussing this year, the pricing are a little bit interesting. So I'm also considering Mendy like at 5, but not more than 5. I guess I want to spend more than 5. I would like to get one like playing goalkeeper who gives lots of save points. In that case, I think Raya. I was preferring Raya, but I probably need to give a little bit thought like Raya or Mendy. I would pick one of those.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the pricing of the goalkeepers this season is very interesting, right? FPL has done a very good job with pricing the goalkeepers. I mean, every other season, Alisson or Ederson are never options, even, right? Even Mendy, they're never options, but this year they are. So it's going to be interesting. But yeah, good option.
Because of the pricing, I think the appeal of like Martinez or Ramsdale, their appeal has reduced like Sa, but because I think in 5.5 you can get Alisson or Ederson. Even Mendy is better, I guess, at 5. So yeah, I mean, these are the options for me.
All right. Okay. Next question.
Just a quick shout out to Ankar. He's done an amazing job with FPL meets in New York. I really want to shout him out here. He just took the lead and he's just completely owned it. And he also joined our virtual meetup the other day. Super nice guy. So shout out to you, Ankar.
Thumbs up, Ankar.
Give him a follow, everyone.
All right. So next question from Raza. Of course, it's a fun question to Yogesh. What do you think of Tottenham?
I'm glad Jamie just went out of
Jamie
here.
went away somewhere.
Yeah, I mean,
See, the question is not what do you think, what do we think?
yeah. So everybody, one by one,
Yeah.
in chorus.
Go ahead, Yogesh. Take a shot. I mean, no, think of it from like the transfers that Tottenham have made. What's their prospect is this season? I know you kind of wanted to talk about the top 6 also. I don't know if we'll have time, but do you think Tottenham will be top 4 or they will have a better fight this year?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they have made some good signings. Bissouma is a good one. I believe he improves the 11 starting 11. I don't know what Jamie thinks, but Bissouma, I don't know if he's gonna play in place of Højbjerg for Tottenham, or is he gonna be on the bench? But otherwise, they have strengthened the wing back positions clearly. And Conte's system is heavily focused on wing backs. So yeah, they have improved their side definitely. But I'm not going to say that they are having their best window or something like that. I mean, it's too extreme for me. Like, I mean, they've got a 33-year-old Perisic and yeah, a couple of signings. Richarlison, I'm not too much, 60 million pound Richarlison is not going to improve their starting 11, in my opinion. Kulusevski is a better player. So, yeah, they have made some good signings. Their depth has improved, but I'm not too worried.
Nice. All right.
We have to let Jamie counter of what he thinks of
You
Arsenal.
want to, Jamie, or you want to let it go?
No, we'll let it go. It's all good. I'll add that just following up on whether Bissouma starts. I think long-term Bissouma and Bentancur are going to be the midfield pair, but I think Conte is going to rotate in Højbjerg and Skip as well. All 4 of them are going to have minutes across the season. He's going to find his favorite pair though, and I think it's going to be Bissouma and Bentancur. But they're going to, I think, like Skip, he's young and he's underrated because he hasn't played as much, but his loan at Norwich was just huge for his development, and he's good. He's going to be good, and he's going to be kind of a mainstay in Tottenham's midfield for long term. So I think Bissouma is a big upgrade, though, especially if you're looking at them from a defensive perspective. This season versus last season, I think Bissouma helps the defense. The quality that he provides up just ahead of the defensive line will improve their prospects for clean sheets. I think they're having a great window, but that's maybe me a little biased. But I think it's more the fact that some of the deals they got were just very good. Like, who wouldn't want Perisic on a free? Who wouldn't want some of these deals? If you asked Man U if they wanted Bissouma for 25, I bet you they'd take him on a heartbeat. So yep. I think they improved Tottenham because of the fact they've got so many games that if they didn't make those depth moves, even if Richarlison's not going to be a starter all the time, he's going to start a lot of games. Mm-hmm. And that kind of a move, those kinds of signings just kind of broadcast that Tottenham's kind of changing the way that they do business a little bit. And I think that makes it, it's promising because they've always been this club that signs cheap players with resale value, and it's a change of that mentality that hopefully leads to success.
All right, nice. So next question is from our good friend Derek. We kind of touched it, 3 versus 2. I think Dan's was a 2 kind of big at the back. Yogesh's was a 2 a little kind of big at the middle, kind of. Your Jamie's was more kind of a 2.5 Wrangler and ZD, what are you guys thinking, at least in the beginning? Are you even considering 3
No, I'm still on 2 like Dan. I'm also trying to go big at the back. So as of now, it's 2 but it's very difficult to ignore Kane. So I will see. Both of these are actually good routes and good viable options. The pricing that we have this season, it really enables us, to put both of them. So, but yeah, I'm on Tumiam right now. So we'll see.
ZD?
Yeah, right now I am also with Tumium. Yeah, it would be nice to have Threemium, but it makes a little bit unbalanced. Feels like it's not balanced well. So right now I am with Tumium, like one premium midfielder Salah and one premium striker, either Kane or Haaland. Depends on the preseason.
All right. Anyone else wants to add anything to that? Like, does it really have to be like attacking the game because we have an extra wild card with Threemium? Is it even a point? Valid point. Jamie, you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, I think it's a good point. I think going three premiums is certainly a strategy if you want to go with an early wild card and kind of attack a couple games early on and see what you can get with. I probably wouldn't stick with a 3 premium for a long term until we have more team value where it makes a little bit more sense to fit them all in. And so, maybe at the World Cup, when we, in 16 going into 17, you can fashion a team that has 3 because you've got a little bit more budget to play around with and it makes a little bit more sense. Or you could attack early. I think it's certainly viable. I haven't looked too closely at how much it depletes things, but that's why I've kind of landed on the 2.5 EM. A little bit of balance of both. And it's and that half could be like a Sterling or who else is in that bracket? Nobody.
Yeah, Sterling
Bruno.
Vardy, basically.
Don't
Bruno,
go Bruno.
kind of, yeah.
We don't want to speak about Bruno.
All right. No, yeah, good discussion. This. So the next set of questions are from Abdullah, another of our FPLUSA buddies. Kane versus Haaland. Anyone wants to talk about it? We kind of did. Jamie is of course 100% on Kane. Yogesh is on none at the moment.
Yeah, but if I have to pick one of the two, I would go Kane for sure.
Kane. Okay. Dan?
Haaland is in the draft that you've just seen, but I lean more towards Kane. And I wouldn't be surprised if I switch.
Wrangler?
Yeah, I mean, I'm also on Haaland right now, but it's going to be also dependent on the preseason, how it looks like. I don't think Haaland played today. I watched until 70 minutes or so. I don't think he came up. So, yeah, I mean, if he doesn't show up, then it's a concern. And as Yogesh mentioned, right, that coming from like Bundesliga to EPL is not like very like easy, right, to get in. So then definitely, then Kane is an option because they are in the same price range. He's into
easy switch. Yeah. ZD?
Yeah, I mean, I was set on. I mean, it's a little difficult to choose actually. But if Haaland, I think Haaland will be integrated slowly, and Kane. I mean,
Kane is Kane.
Yeah, Kane is Kane, and Jamie talked a lot about Kane, so there is nothing to talk about Kane anymore. So right now I'm currently a little bit leaned toward Kane.
Okay. Yeah, I'm currently on Haaland, but if Haaland doesn't get a lot of minutes, especially in the preseason games, in the upcoming games, definitely I will be more leaning towards Kane. And I mean, it's an easy switch anyways at any point if it feels like Haaland is like absolutely breaking it. So that shouldn't hurt a lot, I think. But yeah, next question we already covered.
I'll add before you move on. I'll add that there's a scenario where I have both for sure. That's not off the table of going with I think I tweeted it, but a Kane, Vardy, Haaland up front 3, and basically my same draft, but I take Salah out for a Haaland is not off the table.
Not out of the question, yeah.
Although it's a slight concern of what's going to happen, new team, new tactics. How does he fit in at City? City also just create chances all over the place, and who is likely to get him? This monster. Up front that he's going to be in that Aguero role. So there's a big chance that I'm slightly worried of not having him off the bat.
All right.
We didn't talk about KDB, who scored 2 goals today. So he will be also another person, another player, to talk at some
I think they just overpriced him a little bit.
with
Slightly.
yeah.
There is no reason that he should be priced same as Son, for sure. They shouldn't both be at 12, for sure. All right, so the last question from Abdullah was, how big at the back are you going? I think we are kind of already covered that. Dan is all for big at the back, Sam Wrangler, Yogesh is kind of in the middle, Jamie is kind of in the middle. ZD, you have any thoughts about the defense, kind of how big
Yeah,
want
kind
to
of middle. Obviously, Alexander Arnold and Cancelo is going to be in there, and
Mhm.
the rest of them need to figure out.
Okay, all right. Okay, let's move on to our last two questions. So this one is interesting. This one is from Yogesh's younger brother, Rajesh, right? And I think he's a Chelsea supporter, if I'm not wrong. Yogesh, he's
Yeah.
on the right side of London, of course. So what is your preferred formation looking at the early set of fixture? Again, we kind of covered it, but Jamie, you want to take this? Like, do you really look at the formation necessarily, or do you more look at the players when you?
I got to ask the same question, and I don't really look at who my formation, like, that's not part of my factor of what I'm really picking. I pick the players that I think are going to be the best value and the best, best across, makes my team the best. It just so happens that they all line up in a formation, and you can count it by numbers. But the formations that I am leaning, it is like a 4 or 5 at the back with, either 3 or 4 midfielders and 2 or 3 forwards. But that's not, I'm not looking at my team and going, I want to play in this formation. Let me pick players to fit within that. It's the opposite. It's, let me pick the players and they just so happen to line up in this formation. The only way that I start to question the formation is if I'm picking a formation where I have like 2 midfielders, or or like all 3 forwards or all 5 at the back. That do I really want to do that in case somebody gets injured and I don't have a replacement, that kind of thing. That's the only formation consideration I give.
All right, sounds good. Anyone wants to add anything to that?
No, I agree with Jamie. Yeah, it's like, the approach should be, you should target the players that you need in your team, and then just see how the formation shapes up after that. So yeah.
All right. Okay, so last set of questions from Nihal, APL Masala. He's another one of our APL meets guys in the New Jersey area, correct? So I think the first question is more directed towards Dan. Neto versus Gibbs White, the better. We kind of answered that, but you want to kind of quickly touch on that again?
Yeah, I think Neto is the better option at this point, but Gibbs White is definitely someone to keep an eye on if we keep him. But I don't see a reason at this point to go Gibbs White over Neto. Gibbs White will see more rotation, I think, and he's less attacking. And
the second question, kind of connected, Wang's minutes. How do you see it? How much do you see Wang playing?
Yeah, I touched on this earlier. We have 3 positions up front and 5 players who are all going to rotate. So he's going to see reduced minutes for sure, especially if we sign someone else. I don't think he's in our best 11, and he's also 6 million. So I would only recommend him if you want to go crazy Uber differential, and we find out that he's getting a run of stats, and he looks like he's on form. But I don't know, 1 million extra gets you Jimenez, 0.5 million less gets you Neto. I don't really see him as a pick anymore.
Makes sense. All right, I think we are kind of at the end of our video. I don't see, I was just looking through the questions. I think we pretty much covered everything. Wrangler, you see anything else that we did not cover? I think we pretty much covered
almost all the things, at least, in terms of team structure, drafts, and also Spurs, Wolves, and Arsenal. We'll come up with some other contents on other teams and also game week 1 preview in our later videos. But yeah, I think we covered pretty much well.
All right. Yeah. So, yep. Yeah, I mean, it has been really fun. It has been literally almost 2 hours, but I don't know how that 2 hours passed. It was really great talking to all of you, Jamie, Dan, and Yogesh. Again, thanks for accepting our invitations. Thanks for being here. It was a awesome discussion today. Any last remarks?
No, thank you very much, everyone, for having me on the show. My first YouTube appearance, one to remember, sharing with world number one, and founder of FPL USA Space. Can't get better than this. So I thoroughly enjoyed this and looking forward to more videos. And for those of you listening, please subscribe to this channel. I'm not used to saying this, but I'll start practicing.
Thank you, Yogesh. All right, so let's finish here. Please give all of these guys follow if you are seeing this video. All of them are fantastic FPL. What can I say? Like, not all of them are content creators, but they always have some ideas that you can definitely pick from. So absolutely, again, thanks to all of you who I'm pretty sure we'll meet soon again. Thanks to everyone that was in the chat and were asked all the questions, especially all the FPL USA guys. Cheers, and we'll meet soon again. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
you.
guys.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.